Hello and welcome to another edition of Kaleidoscope on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawadu. On the program today, we discuss the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, the past, present and future, as we sit with some individuals driving those goals and of course ensuring they do their best in achieving to make the world a better place for all. So to achieve this, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has set up a goalkeepers community right here in Nigeria, made up of individuals that help drive the goals as we gradually approach the deadline of 2030.
In 2015, world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly adopted 17 goals. These 17 goals were called the Sustainable Development Goals. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice and strong institutions, and partnerships for the goals. All these goals are aimed at providing a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. The goals are an urgent call for action by all countries, developed and developing in a global partnership. The attainment of these set goals by the United Nations has long been championed by philanthropic organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation launched Goalkeepers, an initiative to spur action, track progress towards the goals, and list the challenges still ahead for countries around the world. Every year, the Foundation, with the help of data, highlights the progress made so far with the SDGs, while also celebrating individuals making a difference.
And we know that an agency that helps them be responsible.
To better monitor and drive the achievement of the SDGs, the Gates Foundation set up a Goalkeepers community networking platform made up of change makers to network and mix with each other, discuss better ways to drive development in Nigeria, and promote the work they do by telling their stories. The 2024 edition of the Goalkeepers Community Networking Mixer was held in Lagos, Nigeria, and it had in attendance change makers from various sectors recognized by the foundation. While progress has been made in achieving some of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, there's still a lot to be done, especially in Africa. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is guided by the belief that every life is equal and everyone can lead healthy and productive lives. With just a few years to the 2030 SDGs deadline, the Goalkeepers Community Networking Mixer is an important platform that will help measure and drive more development in key sectors across Nigeria so that by the year 2030, we'll have good stories to tell.
First, we chat with the founder and executive director, Women in Leadership Advancement Network, Willen Global, Abosede George Organ. Let's begin with the journey into being a goalkeeper. What has the experience been like for you, and when did this journey start for you?
So this journey started in 2022, and I remember getting that email. And to be honest, as a social entrepreneur, it's one of those things where you're like, well, it feels good to be seen, right? Because in our space, as you know, there are not too many people who acknowledge what you're doing.
Very true.
And then I think that was just a taste of it. But being in New York with other change makers, it's just priceless. So that's where the journey to Goalkeepers started.
So in your activities or things that you have done, being a goalkeeper for 2 years now, this is 2024, tell us about those experiences, especially the personal ones, and what it's been like, the journey so far for you.
I mean, so if I think back to, first of all, I mean, it's important to highlight that there's a Nigerian goalkeepers community. So I remember that was like the first touch point, getting to meet other goalkeepers in Nigeria, finding out what their journey had been like. And as you know, I run an organization that's focused on women's leadership, and it has just been an opportunity to expose more people to the work that we do. But also to collaborate. And I think those are the benefits of being a goalkeeper.
About the work that you do, being a goalkeeper, what are the sustainable development goals you concentrate on, and what are the projects you've been able to carry out, or maybe initiatives that have been able to accelerate the goals?
So specifically, we work on gender equality, so that's the SDG 5. And if you even want to break it down specifically to the targets, it will be SDG 5.5, because we're focused on women's leadership. So our work at Willen is to inspire a shift to gender-balanced leadership. And if you ask me what have we achieved so far, I would just highlight a few things that we've done in 2024. So over the past year, we've been working, actually with support from the Gates Foundation, we've been working with female health commissioners. Now, if you think about Nigeria, as you know, even female health commissioners, there's only 8 out of 37, right? But what we've been doing is putting those women in community, building the capacity, giving them exposure, and then of course, you know, finding a way to also build thought leadership. So we just launched a white paper that's titled Strengthening the Role of Women's Leadership in Strengthening Subnational Health Systems. So this is kind of the work that we've been doing. We also work with young women, pipelining them into leadership and equipping them with the skills and the toolkit that they need to be leaders in their different spheres.
Let's talk about the goalkeeper community, which is a new initiative now that is beginning to maybe a plan to shape how goalkeepers work in the country and the things that they're able to do to drive sustainability and all of that. What do you think about the community?
Look, I'm really, really excited. Since becoming a goalkeeper in 2022, it's one of the things that I've looked forward to, because as you said, if we're going to advance the goals, especially in this decade of action, we don't have a lot of time, then collaboration becomes really critical. And how we accelerate the work that we all do is by coming together, learning what each other are doing, and seeing how we collaborate and accelerate that work. So I'm really excited. I mean, today we are at a community event. I've already run into people that I haven't seen in a while, because we're all busy, head down, doing the work. And that's just the beauty of it. So in terms of what I hope that becomes, I hope that we can do this where there's quarterly, have touch points, we catch up, what are you doing, how can I support you, what do you need? And ultimately, that's how we eventually, you know, really hit our targets in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Next, we delve into the creative sector, where we discuss the efforts of talented creatives in Nigeria and across Africa who contribute to the attainment of the United Nations Development Goals. We sit with musician and social influencer Judah Baga, popularly known as MI, who was also made a goalkeeper a few years ago. He shares with us the experience and how creatives can add value to society.
What was the feeling first? Let's begin with that. When you were told, oh, you're a goalkeeper now for the SDGs, how did that make you feel? And what was your first reaction?
Look, very excited, very honored. For people that are listening to this that may not know like the impact of the SDGs, you know, it's a simplified way to think about it is sort of the milestones that a large portion of humanity have to keep track of how we can make the world better and more equitable for everyone. And so in everything that we're doing, we should all be part of that progress story. And so to be sort of identified for the work that, you know, we're either ideating or doing, and to be singled out to be encouraged, and to be also connected with other people that are in the same space, I think it's really, really cool.
So with the target of 2030, I mean, when we look at where we are, when we talk about the SDG goals, we haven't achieved as much as we would like to. As someone in the creative industry, how do you think your expertise can help drive the SDGs, accelerate these goals that we hope to achieve before the target year?
Oh, absolutely. I am very bullish on the creative sector. I think this creative sector is the answer to all of this, right? And maybe I'm over-exaggerating, but the reason I say this is because I think the creative sector has proven to be the sector for young people. And I think a lot of the change that needs to happen in Africa, you know, has sort of two ends to it. There's sort of this policy, structure, systems end, you know, where governments and HNIs and decision makers are sort of positioned. Yes. But then there's sort of this like culture end that's affected by the zeitgeist, where actual young people are living in communities, in going to schools, are they're part of societies, whether online or in physical spaces, you know, that affect and impact their real lives. And I feel like the creative sector is the perfect industry to be the leverage to create impact in that space. And so I'm very, very, very bullish. I think what's happening in Afrobeat, in Nollywood, it's happening in Amapiano, it's happening around the continent, is the perfect space for us to accelerate, you know, attack poverty, attack education, attack health, attack like social norms and all those things there. You know, this is what young people care about, and, you know, it's what dominates their society, their zeitgeist, and that's the way for us to create impact for Africa.
When you look at ways to help the creative sector create this impact or make these goals happen, what do you think the government or the private sector or people around can do to help your community make sure this happens?
Absolutely. So I think about it like we're trying to give the average African child. So let's say, who's the most disadvantaged African child today? Let's say like, this can be a political answer, but let's say a young girl somewhere where there's extreme restriction on a girl's rights. And what I think success for Africa looks like is being able to accelerate that young girl today into a position where she can provide true value globally, right? And so we're now looking for spaces where Africa can play, where her community and her context can play at a global level. And I think that for Africa, what we've shown is that that space is creativity. It's music, it's culture, it's art, it's storytelling, it's ideas, and we can play at a global level. That gives that young woman, whether within her cultural context, whether within her geographical context, it can give her access to technology where she can be an AI designer for, you know, a studio that's in Turkey, you know, and just because she's gifted and she can storytell a certain way, you know, she can partake in that economy. Also as well, that our economy has done, our industry has done really well in terms of giving opportunities for young women, creating opportunity as well. You look at the amount of women-led businesses like Bella Naija, Linda Ikeji, you think about the film space, like this is truly the space that can transform Africa. You know, at Task, we have a phrase, we say creatives will change Africa. And I truly believe it, that the space is not just about entertaining the world, but about creating industries that within Africa can employ young people in a healthy way and give them a real opportunity to make something of their lives quickly, you know, without them having to learn and be behind globally with the rest of the world. So I really, really, truly believe in the creative sector. And even non-obvious parts of, like, you know, the SDG goals, for instance, the environment and things like that, challenges around there. Like, when it comes down to social norm and attitude change and you're trying to drive these huge cultural shifts in society, it comes down to the people that have access to people's ears. And it still comes down to the creator economy. It comes down to media and, you know, that. And so I'm bullish on the creative economy. I believe that's the answer. That's the answer. It's the gateway for us to create change in Africa.
So in creative content, I mean, there's lots of myths and unbelievable stories. People believe what they want to believe. How do you think the content creative industry or the creative industry can help change the narrative and make sure, oh, people think this way. Can we somehow change their narrative to this way into some good path or positive path of life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in Nigeria and in Africa, you're seeing a great example of it. And I think we have examples globally. Every time a superstar speaks up for something that,
Yes.
society is on board with, it really adds so much power and context to it. I think in Africa, we're seeing people even take a step further. Some of the cohorts at Goalkeepers here, if you meet them, they're creators who now have non-profits where actual community work is taking place, where surveys and data is being extracted, where there's actual programs, people are getting vaccinations. I know young people who are creators who are leading, massive calls to vote or massive calls for, justice reform or things like that. And I feel it's that hybrid approach of saying, okay, we are going to be, the industry that creates, content for the world. We're going to power the content and stories that the world hears, and Africa is going to be the leader there. And in so doing, we're going to change the narrative.
Yes.
But within that industry, we're going to make sure that those creators and those young people get access to vaccines, because those industries are they're just coming up and they can be embedded with the right sort of thinking from ground level. The new studios that are going to come, I'm going to make sure that there's equal pay embedded, there's gender equality, there's access to education for young people, that there is justice within those ecosystems, that people can be themselves, people can express themselves, and that we can then take on the messaging, the real challenges that need to be tackled across the continent, and we can hand in hand with other stakeholders, government, private sector, etc. We can drive Africa forward.
Welcome back. You're still watching Kaleidoscope on Channels Television. Finally on the program, we chat with Ekana Misiche, who is the Deputy Director, Policy, Advocacy and Communications of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He tells us what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing to monitor the progress of the SDGs and, of course, the essence of collaboration, especially with the creation of the Goalkeepers community. Take a look.
The Goalkeepers event is known for promoting or accelerating the SDGs, as we know, and development or progress when you talk about the SDGs. So let's find out how this year's event was, reflecting Nigeria's progress, particularly in critical areas like health, education, and poverty alleviation. How would you describe this year's Goalkeepers event?
I think this year's Goalkeepers event was a fantastic medium to bring all the change makers, the leaders, innovators who are really doing a lot to address malnutrition. Yes. And the focus this year was really around nutrition. Yeah. And so it was led by our co-chair, Mr. Bill Gates, who really tried to propel the story around the fact that if we're trying to accelerate our actions and progress towards 2030, we need to do more in addressing malnutrition. Very true. And considering the fact that with all the global tailwinds that have been happening, it's important to see how we can begin to do more collaboration, get more change makers together, innovate, and so that way we can actually bring a bit more impactful progress towards what we're trying to solve, which is malnutrition. So this year was a fantastic medium to sort of do that in light of everything going on.
A lot of Nigerian youths these days are now drawn to tech, and the more we say, oh, by 2030 we have to have achieved at least a great percentage of the SDG goals. What are those initiatives or maybe Goalkeepers helping drive that, and what would you propose they do better to make sure that at least by the year 2030 that area of driving technology and making sure it helps drive the SDGs are achieved?
One of the fastest growing sectors in Nigeria and across Africa is the tech sector.
Yes.
And the stories around unicorns haven't stopped. So when you see companies like MoneyPoint emerging as another unicorn, it tells you that the growth story in Africa is still very progressive. And so at the Goalkeepers event, one of the things I've tried to do is to bring very young, innovative folks together across Nigeria, across Africa in general, the continent, and even globally. And one of the unique things about the Goalkeepers event is their stories are amazing.
Yes.
And as we think through their stories, and we have seen a lot of innovation around data. I've seen a lot of innovation that are really driving change in different countries. So when you bring everyone together, that's builds a melting point where they can learn from each other, stories. And like you said earlier, Our goal is to see how can we drive a bigger impact. And now with the advent of AI, we had AI innovators there, and they were doing amazing things. I mean, just imagine in 10 seconds or less, you can get all this information around what's going on real time. So there's just been a lot of advancement there. And one of the things, and if I were to hone on one specific person, I can't, because there were so many of them that were there. And for me, even I've been a 3-time goalkeeper, and I've learned so much. So every time I come there, it's like a buffet of innovators around. So, and I think everyone goes back with the challenge that we need to do more.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I would say that we'll try to do. And so there are innovations around maternal and newborn child health. Okay. There are innovations around agriculture. There are innovations around climate change. There are innovations around even malaria. So meeting all these innovators who are doing unique stuff in India and Ethiopia and Nigeria, it's just amazing. And it just tells you that even with everything going on, we can do a lot more.
The 2024 edition of the Goalkeepers event, if we look at it, focused well on nutrition. Was there a reason? What inspired the focus on nutrition for that year?
So I think one primary focus of this year's theme around addressing malnutrition is an opportunity for large-scale food fortification. I mean, one of the innovations that the Gates Foundation is thinking about is when you look at cassava, when you look at cowpea, when you look at maize and rice, what sort of solutions are out there to see how can we do more with what we produce? Okay. So you find out that even the yields that come out from our current farming system are not enough to keep up with the demand. So one of the things that some innovators have done is to think, how do we bring in more nutritional supplements to the food through vitamin A, iron, different bits that can help out. So when you eat rice, not just eat rice, but you eat rice that has a bit more nutrients in it. So you have strong, healthier children and adults also. So for us, large-scale food fortification is important in the work that we're doing. And we see it as a solution towards being able to get more yields in the field and also feed a growing population. And so I think that's one aspect or one critical element of addressing malnutrition. We're seeing it in countries like Ethiopia. We're seeing it in other countries generally across the world. So I think there's an opportunity for us to do that there. And I would say that in Nigeria in particular, one of the things that we are also looking at is bouillon cubes, which also known as Maggi. So every day we put Maggi in the soup. But imagine that if that Maggi had a lot more nutrients in it, that would be good for kids, just because every day restaurant owners and folks, they cook, or at least almost every day to some extent. So why don't you cook and have the mindset that you're not just cooking something that your folks can eat, but it's a bit more nutritious for the family in general.
Okay, let's now talk about the Goalkeepers community, which is this initiative of bringing goalkeepers together. What do you hope to achieve with this new initiative, and what impact do you think this can make going forward?
I think one of the things we want to do is definitely bring a network of like-minded change makers, innovators, leaders together. So I think that network is important. Yeah. And the second thing is collaboration. How do we get them to begin to collaborate, and so we can do more, with considering the fact that we have a 2030 goal. And there's also an area around leadership. One of the things we do at Goalkeepers is to celebrate exemplary leadership, those who are doing fantastic stuff. And so we want to tell more of our stories. So we want to be able to tell more stories around what we are doing as innovators in Nigeria, and how we're using data to generate certain solutions. And then how do we hold folks that need to be accountable to do what they need to do. Yeah. So when you look at these mediums, it gives you a platform where, a young lady, a young gentleman who's doing amazing stuff out there across the SDGs is showcased, also gets additional support from the network, and then use the solution as an exemplar that you can replicate in different states and different LGAs and different localities to be able to do what you need to do. So that's what we're trying to do here. We hope we can do more. So we're looking for more goalkeepers like you
Exactly.
to join us, and in this journey, because 2030 is not too far off.
It's not
So it
far
tells you that we have a lot of work to do, and we can do more when we collaborate better.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's Kaleidoscope for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please watch out for past editions of the program. Go to youtube.com/channelsweb, click on playlist, then go to Kaleidoscope and enjoy your week with it. I'll definitely see you again very soon. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Thanks for watching.